Why was everyone staring at her like she didn't belong? The rotor wash from the Chinook hammered across the landing zone, throwing sand and grit into every crease of skin. Soldiers squinted, some shielding their eyes with calloused hands, others simply enduring it with that quiet hardness born of too many deployments. In places like Fort, men measured each other not with words, but with how much discomfort they could withstand without flinching. Alexis Morgan tugged her cap lower over her eyes. She stepped onto the tarmac beneath the massive blades, the shadow of the aircraft splitting across her boots. A small frame, barely 115 pounds in full kit, she carried a rucksack that looked like it might swallow her whole. The straps dug into her shoulders, but her posture never bent. She walked steady, controlled. And they noticed. "Jesus Christ," someone muttered near the motor pool, his voice carrying easily across the landing zone. "They're sending us children now." The knot of infantry chuckled, the laughter rolling like distant artillery. Private Williams, too young to know restraint, called out louder, "Bet she can't even lift that pack without help." His friends snickered, the sound harsh in the twilight. Another voice chimed in, "What's she gonna do if we get hit? Hide behind her rifle." They thought she couldn't hear, but Alexis Morgan always heard. Her hearing had been sharper than most since childhood, a gift or perhaps a curse. She ignored them, her face as blank as stone, her eyes hidden beneath the brim of her helmet. Each step seemed unremarkable, almost too quiet, but inside her mind, calculations ticked like clockwork. 16 seconds to reach the south fence if necessary. Guard Tower Northeast has poor visibility. Motor Pool offers cover and weapons access. Water Tower, perfect overwatch, 300-degree view of the main gate. Fence rotation leaves a 7-second blind spot. She wasn't walking, she was mapping. But they couldn't know that, not yet. Tank Harrison, arms crossed at the edge of the landing zone, watched her with a scowl. 20 years in uniform had carved lines around his eyes. 2 tours in the Gulf had deepened them. His chest was broad as the armored vehicle that had given him his nickname. 3 days, he said flatly, peeling a crumpled bill from his pocket. She'll be crying to go home in 3 days. 2 countered, she won't even make it through patrol. The bets passed between calloused hands. The circle of men laughed again. "Hey, sweetheart," Tank called, voice heavy with mockery. "Need help with that bag? Looks like it weighs more than you do." Fresh laughter erupted. Morgan paused mid-stride, just long enough for Tank to see something flicker in her eyes, cold, sharp, predatory. Then it was gone. "I'm fine, thank you," she said quietly. "No bite, no sarcasm, just fact." Her voice was so calm, it unsettled him, more than a retort ever could. Behind her, Williams mimicked her in a high pitch, earning more laughter. Their words blurred together now, growing uglier, drifting into the places soldiers often went when boredom and arrogance mixed too freely. She ignored them, her gait steady, deliberate. Inside her quarters, a plain metal-framed bed, a battered desk, she unpacked with surgical precision. Every item had a place. Every weapon, every tool laid out in exact order, checked twice. Unlike the others, her gear wasn't scattered across the floor. She worked silently, methodically, as if the world outside didn't exist. From the hidden compartment of her rucksack, she a small metal case. The pieces inside looked ordinary to most eyes, simple machine parts, nothing more. But when assembled, they transformed her standard-issue M24 into something far more lethal. Submoa accuracy at impossible ranges. A rifle tuned to her touch like an extension of her heartbeat. By the time the barracks' laughter had died into silence, she had the weapon assembled. The bolts cycled like silk. She set the scope to her eye and gazed across the compound, the glass bringing distant barracks into sharp focus. 89, she whispered. A number only she knew its meaning. 89 ghosts. 89 names no one would ever speak. Morning reveille struck at 500. Boots thundered against pavement. Soldiers dragged themselves into formation, eyes bleary. Morgan was already there. She'd been awake an hour, her body humming from a workout that would have flattened men twice her size. She stood at perfect attention, not a bead of sweat betraying her effort. Captain Richard scanned his clipboard, posture straight as a steel beam. 42, a lifetime in uniform etched across his face. 3 patrols today, he barked. Harrison, Alpha Team North. Williams, Bravo, perimeter sweep. Henderson, convoy escort. Morgan. His eyes barely flicked to her before returning to the paper inventory duty in the warehouse. The smirk spread across Tank's face before the words were even finished. Careful with those heavy boxes. Williams snorted. Get her a step ladder for the top shelves. The laughter was louder this time, emboldened by daylight. Morgan didn't move, didn't flinch, but the words pressed deeper than she expected. Real soldiers, Richards had said yesterday. The words echoed. Still she nodded, yes, sir. The warehouse was hot, stale, crates stacked like forgotten monuments. The supply sergeant barely looked at her, just handed her the clipboard. She counted quietly, methodically, not just crates, angles, entry points, blind corners. Even here her mind hunted for weaknesses. You handle that rifle like you know it, Gaines remarked, watching her strip and reassemble an M4 before logging it. Basic training, she answered evenly. Gaines frowned. Basic doesn't teach that, and those rounds, he pointed as she pulled a box aside, you mark them. Pour crimp on the casings. They'll jam in humid conditions. Gaines stared at her. He'd been in supply for years and he hadn't caught that. How the hell would you know? She shrugged. My father taught me to shoot. He was particular about ammunition. Not a lie, but not the whole truth. Afternoon drills pulled her out of the warehouse. Room clearing, close quarters battle. Williams smirked when paired with her. Try to keep up, sweetheart. Don't get in the way when the real work starts. He fed her wrong intel on purpose. Called targets on the left when the sound of movement clearly came from the right. She trusted her instincts anyway, but hesitation cost her. Paint rounds splattered across her chest plate. Jesus, Morgan, Williams barked. You're gonna get us killed out there. The instructor's jaw tightened. Room clearing is about teamwork, not ego. Williams scowled. With respect, Sarge, she can't even follow basic instructions. She followed the right ones, the instructor corrected, but his voice was weary, like he knew how little it mattered. It kept happening. Wrong calls, small sabotages, public humiliation dressed as training mistakes. The breaking point came on the rifle range. Maybe start with the basics, Williams sneered. Think our little mascot even knows which end the bullets come out of. Laughter rolled. Morgan's tone stayed level. Your rifle hasn't been cleaned in weeks, that carbon buildup. I don't need some desk jockey telling me how to clean my weapon, he snapped, shoving her hard. She went down, dust in her mouth, helmet skittering. The crowd howled. She stood, dusted herself off, picked up her rifle. Her voice was quiet, but it cut clean. Would you like to make the next drill more interesting? Williams grinned. Bring it on. The ring formed the next morning outside the barracks. Men gathered, half expecting blood, half hopping for it. Williams lunged first, aiming for a shove. She caught his wrist mid-motion, shifted her weight, and dropped him into the dirt so fast the crowd fell silent. He came at her harder, swinging wild. She ducked, trapped his arm, twisted, not enough to break, just enough to make him grunt and drop to a knee. 3 moves later, Williams was flat on his back, dust rising around him, eyes wide, lip bleeding. Morgan stood calm, steady, breathing even. Your weapon maintenance, she said, as if the entire exchange had been about rifles, should be as disciplined as your movements. No one laughed. Even Tank, arms crossed, was reassessing. Then came the slow clap. Captain Richards, watching from the edge of the ring, his expression unreadable. Impressive, Morgan, he said at last. Where exactly did logistics training teach you that? She met his gaze evenly. Self-defense courses, sir. A woman my size can't afford to be helpless. It was the line she'd rehearsed, but the narrowing of his eyes told her he didn't quite believe it. Report to my office at 1400. You're being reassigned. As she walked away, she felt the shift, small, imperceptible to most, but something in the air had changed. Not respect, not yet, but the tremor of it. And something else. Whispers starting to spread. The quiet girl wasn't what she seemed. But there was something she hadn't told them, not yet. Why did silence feel heavier than gunfire? The yard was still when Captain Richard stepped into the briefing room that morning, a clipboard tucked under his arm, steam rising from mugs of bitter coffee. A dozen men shifted in their chairs, boots scraping against the floor, their expressions carrying the mix of fatigue and discipline that always filled rooms like this. Morgan slipped into a seat at the back, posture perfect, eyes lowered. She knew what the others saw when they glanced at her, a clerk, maybe not one of them, but her pulse had slowed into the calm rhythm she trusted, a hunter's rhythm. Richards tapped the board. Meet your new nightmare. Pinned to the cork surface was a grainy surveillance photo, woodland camouflage, masked face, a long rifle angled across his body. Intelligence calls him Shadow Fox, no confirmed identity, no nationality, but his work speaks for itself. 23 confirmed kills in the last 8 months, all U.S. military personnel, all single shots, distances our best snipers call impossible. The room chilled. Morgan felt it immediately. The shift in posture, the unease in the silence, the acknowledgement that somewhere out there moved a predator who understood their world better than they did. Tank raised a hand. Sir, we've dealt with snipers before. What makes this one different? Richard's reply was flat. This one hunts us. He chooses the ground. He controls the pace. Special forces have gone after him and come back empty-handed, or not at all. Another photo went up. A Delta team. 4 men blurred for confidentiality. Last month, only one came back. He hasn't spoken since. Just repeats the same words. The forest has eyes. The weight in the room deepened. Morgan's expression didn't change, but her mind raced. She'd heard whispers, Shadow Fox, stories traded in the quiet corners of operations. She knew what whispers were worth, sometimes more than official reports. Williams's bruised lip still bore the lesson she'd given him in the dirt days ago. He leaned forward, tension in his voice. So what's the plan? Wait for him to come to us. Negative, Richards said. We believe he's setting up for a hit in the woods near Carter's Ridge. There's a high-value meeting scheduled there. Senior officers. If he's operating in the area, he'll be providing overwatch. We need volunteers, tracking mission, deep woods, multiple days, high risk. The silence was immediate. No one moved. Everyone knew what high risk meant against a sniper who could strike from nowhere. Then Morgan spoke. I volunteer. The air shifted, not toward respect but disbelief. Tank laughed, breaking the tension. That's rich. Send after Shadow Fox. Maybe she can wave her magic wand. The chuckles were uneasy this time. They'd seen what she'd done to Williams. They weren't laughing quite as freely now. Richards looked at her carefully. This isn't supply duty, Morgan, this is. I understand exactly what it is, sir. He scanned her file. Your record says logistics and support. When exactly did you get experience hunting snipers? Her gaze never wavered. I'm a fast learner. Tank snorted. This guy's killed Special Forces operators. When the shooting starts, she's going to freeze. Morgan turned her eyes to him. Calm, cold. And what happens when your size and noise discipline get your entire team killed before you even find him? The silence that followed cut deeper than laughter. Enough, Richard said sharply. Morgan, you're in. As a spotter, you'll be paired with Sergeant Harrison. Tank's jaw clenched, like he'd been ordered to carry a live grenade. Understood, she said. As the others filed out, Richards held her back. He studied her with narrowed eyes. Nobody volunteers for a mission like this without a reason. What's yours? She gave him the line she'd practiced, soft enough to sound believable. Maybe I just want to prove myself, sir. But Richard's gaze lingered. Your combat scores are too good for someone with your background. The way you handled Williams wasn't Army standard. That was something else. I don't know what program you came from, but don't get my men killed. She nodded, yes, sir. As she walked out, a small smile touched her lips. He was sharp, sharper than she'd expected. But he'd drawn the wrong conclusion. Better to let him think she was some experiment than know the truth. 48 hours later, the woods swallowed them whole. The North Carolina wilderness was dense, damp, and unnervingly quiet. Only the crunch of boots over pine needles broke the silence. Tank took point, his massive frame moving with deliberate steps. Morgan brought up the rear, her pace so controlled it made even Tank glance back once, suspicion flickering in his eyes. 8 hours of tracking, signs faint but there. A broken branch, a disturbance in the pine bed, an unnatural stillness where birds should have been singing. Morgan noticed details the others missed. By late afternoon, they reached a clearing. An abandoned cabin sagged in the center, its roof half-collapsed, its windows dark sockets staring into nothing. Something was wrong. Tank glassed the site with his binoculars. Where the hell is everyone? Meeting was supposed to be. Binoculars, Morgan asked. He hesitated, then handed them over. She scanned. North corner of the roof, leaves arranged as a shooting rest. A door cracked at the wrong angle, a curtain too still for the breeze that should moved it. And the biggest tell of all, no birdsong. The forest had gone silent. He's been here, she said. Tank frowned. How can you tell? She pointed out each detail. He squinted, saw none of it. That's because you're not looking for it, she murmured. The unease spread through the team. This isn't a waypoint, she said finally. It's bait. Tank's radio crackled. Recon 1, confirm location and status. 6 clicks northeast of insertion. Cabin in sight, no friendlies, possible hostile. Static then, proceed with caution. The order was given, they advanced. Inside, the metallic tang hit first. Blood. 3 bodies lay in the main room placed for maximum psychological impact. 2 men, 1 woman, officers, their aide, all with single gunshots to the head. Above them, in what looked like blood, a message scrawled on the wall. Come find me. Jesus Christ, Tank muttered. Morgan's gut turned cold. We need to leave now. Why? Because this isn't just a message, it's a setup. The whisper of fabric against stone above them was all the warning she got. Contact, she shouted, slamming into Tank just as the first round punched through the wall where his head had been. Exploded. She rolled, came up with her rifle, firing 3 quick shots toward the rooftop. 1 figure dropped. Snipers, multiple positions. The cabin erupted into chaos. Henderson and Williams burst through the back door, weapons raised. Tank barked into the radio, voice sharp. Morgan moved with precision. Behind an overturned table, she spotted muzzle flash in the tree line. Wind correction. Elevation. 300 meters. 1 slow breath, squeeze. A figure slumped. Tank stared at her like she'd grown another face. Where the hell did you learn to? Northwest Ridge, she cut him off. 400 meters, that's him. Even at that distance, she knew. Shadow Fox. Their eyes locked through scopes, predator and predator. He fired. She was faster. Her round slammed into his shoulder, twisting him sideways. His rifle tumbled. She cycled the bolt, fired again. But he was gone, slipping behind cover like smoke. The forest fell silent again. 15 minutes dragged, tense, waiting for the next shot that never came. He could have killed them all, but he hadn't. This wasn't an ending, it was a message. Tank looked at her differently now. something closer to respect, though laced with suspicion. "We're going to have to talk about your service record." She didn't look up from her scope. "Later, right now we track him." But the truth pressed in on her chest as they searched the blood trail vanishing into the highlands. This wasn't over. It had only just begun. Why didn't anyone speak on the ride back? The Chinook thundered through the night sky, rotors pounding the air. Henderson sat pale, blood seeping through the bandage on his leg. Williams kept scanning the below like Shadow Fox might still be there, waiting for one last shot. Even Tank, massive, immovable Tank, leaned forward with his elbows on his knees, eyes unfocused. But Morgan. She sat in the corner, her rifle stripped open across her lap, each piece wiped down, checked, oiled, reassembled. Her hands moved steady, mechanical, the ritual of a sniper. To others it looked like coldness. To her it was survival. Tank finally broke the silence. His voice carried over the roar of the rotors. "Morgan," he hesitated, words like stones he had to force from his mouth. "That shooting back there, where exactly did you learn to do that?" She didn't look up. "Practice." "Practice my ass." Williams leaned in, bruised face still swollen from their earlier fight. "I've been shooting since I was 12. I couldn't make those shots on my best day." Tank wasn't letting it go. "Your file says logistics. Where'd you find time for practice like that?" Morgan slid the bolt back into place, the clean metal clicking into position. Her voice was calm, too calm. "I spend time on the range whenever I can." Richard's headset pulled off his ears, turned toward her. "No, I've seen range shooters. I've seen competition marksmen. What you did wasn't either of those. That was combat precision under fire, and you didn't flinch." The inside of the bird went still. Even the rotor thump seemed louder now. "You moved," Richard said flatly, like a veteran. Morgan lifted her eyes, meeting his gaze evenly. "Sometimes people surprise you." Tank shook his head. "No, I know luck when I see it. What I saw was professional competence." Henderson's voice, quiet from the rear. "Spotting sniper positions that fast, calling their angles. That doesn't come from books." Morgan set the rifle down gently, her expression unreadable. "Maybe you weren't looking hard enough." Williams flushed, defensive. "Or maybe you've got experience you're not talking about." Her eyes locked on his, not angry, not defensive, just steady. "Maybe you should focus on your own story and let me worry about mine." The silence that followed was heavier than the firefight they'd just survived. Tank leaned back, pieces starting to click into place in his mind. The way she scanned the base on day one. The way she'd dropped Williams in the dirt. The impossible calm under fire. "You're not who you say you are," he muttered finally. Morgan held his gaze. "I'm exactly who I say I am. Staff Sergeant Alexis Morgan, Logistics." But the words hung hollow in the air. The helicopter began to descend. Dust and floodlights rose to meet them. Morgan was the first off, gear shouldered, stride steady toward the debriefing area. Tank called after her. "Whatever your story is, you saved our lives. We won't forget that." She didn't turn, didn't break stride, just nodded once. By the time they reached the compound, rumors were already spreading. About the firefight. About the quiet supply clerk who had dropped 3 enemy snipers with impossible precision. Soldiers who had mocked her days before now stared openly, curiosity replacing derision. In the debriefing room, Richard sat across from her, file open on the table. He tapped the paper with his pen. "Expert marksmanship scores, that explains today, but all your assignments, rear echelon, supply, so explain this to me. How does a supply clerk develop the tactical awareness to read an ambush site and the skill to make those shots?" Before she could answer, the door opened. Colonel strode in, tall, severe, uniform crisp enough to cut glass, silver eagles gleaming on his collar. "Captain, I need to speak with Staff Sergeant Morgan immediately." Richards rose. "With respect, sir, we're in the middle of a debrief." "It's over," cut in. His eyes locked on hers, sharp, knowing, recognition. "Staff Sergeant, you're coming with me." Richards didn't back down. "Sir, I have a right to know what kind of soldier I'm commanding." Turned at the door, his tone like iron. "Captain, what clearance do you hold?" "Secret, sir." "Then you don't have the clearance to know what kind of soldier you're commanding." The words fell like a stone. She followed out. Soldiers turned as they passed, conversations stalling mid-sentence. Whispers chased their wake. In the command bunker, secured the door, then unlocked a heavy safe. He pulled a thick manila folder, the red classification stamps glaring across its surface. He flipped it open, reading aloud. "Staff Sergeant Alexis Echo Morgan. Call sign Ghost 7. 75th Ranger Regiment, 2nd Battalion, Special Operations, 2 Tour Afghanistan, 1 Iraq, top of class U.S. Army Sniper School, Fort Benning, Advanced Urban Warfare with British SAS, Counter-Sniper Certification with FBI Hostage Rescue, Operation Eagle Claw 43 confirmed, Desert Storm 28, Just Cause 18, 12 of those were high-value targets." He looked up, 89 confirmed kills. Morgan's voice was calm, almost detached. "That was before today, sir." Outside the door, the hallway had gone quiet. A crowd had gathered, close enough to hear every word. "Close the folder." His tone sharpened. "For 3 months you've been under deep cover as a logistics specialist, gathering intelligence on Shadow Fox. Today wasn't chance. It was the culmination of that operation. Your cover is blown." Her posture shifted. The quiet clerk fell away like a discarded mask. Her back straightened. Her voice carried steel. "Shadow Fox is wounded but operational. Request permission to finish the mission." "Granted, but from this point forward, you operate under your true identity and rank." Opened the door. Soldiers filled the hall, faces tight with shock, awe, shame. The same men who had mocked her now stared like they were seeing a ghost. Announced, his voice carrying, "Meet Staff Sergeant Alexis Morgan. Call sign Ghost 7. One of the most effective counter-snipers in the U.S. military. She eliminated 3 enemy combatants and saved your patrol team. Adjust your attitudes accordingly." She let her eyes sweep over them. No gloating, no smugness, just cool detachment. "The mission continues," she said simply. "Shadow Fox is still out there. Anyone who wants to help is welcome. Anyone who doesn't, stay out of my way." That night her quarters were silent. She sat alone at the desk, a small photograph in her hands. A man in desert camouflage, rifle slung across his chest, smiling beside a younger version of herself. Her mentor, the one who had told her the most dangerous person in the room isn't always the one making noise. Sometimes it's the one no one notices until it's too late. She slid the photo away and assembled her rifle once more. Tomorrow, she wouldn't be invisible anymore. For better or worse, Ghost 7 had stepped out of the shadows. And Shadow Fox was waiting. Why did the base feel different the night after her cover was blown? Not louder, not quieter, just different. Fort buzzed with whispers. Ghost 7. The name slid across the mess hall, the barracks, the yard. Men who wouldn't meet her eyes before now stared openly, measuring themselves against a legend they hadn't recognized. Some watched with respect, some with fear. Others avoided her altogether, ashamed of the jokes they'd told only days ago. Morgan ignored it all. She sat alone, tray untouched, eyes on the satellite imagery glowing on her tablet. The forest stretched across the screen and ravines painted in sterile shades of green. Shadow Fox was still out there, somewhere inside those trees, nursing a wound she had given him. Her fingers traced routes, calculated ranges, marked potential hide sites. The work kept her hands busy while her mind gnawed at something else. Her identity wasn't a secret anymore. Her cover was gone, and that meant Shadow Fox wasn't just an enemy now. He was a challenge, a predator acknowledging another predator. The scrape of boots pulled her out of thought. Ghost 7. She looked up. Colonel stood rigid at the edge of her table, a thin folder in his hand. His expression was carved from stone. She started to rise, but he gestured for her to sit. He lowered himself opposite her, placing the folder between them. Shadow Fox, latest intel. She flipped it open. Reports, forensic photos, grainy surveillance. But her eyes caught on the small evidence bag tucked inside. A bronze medallion tarnished by weather, shaped like a fox's head. On the back etched letters, Ghost 7. He left this at the scene, said. His voice was flat, but there was something in his eyes, concern, maybe even unease. He knows who you are. He's making it personal. Something cold settled in Morgan's stomach. She turned the medallion over, thumb brushing the carved letters. The weight of it was heavier than its size. Any reason Shadow Fox might single you out? Asked. Her face stayed neutral, her voice even. Not that I'm aware of, sir. He studied her, searching for cracks. But Morgan had learned long ago how to wear silence like armor. We're accelerating the timetable, said finally. You'll head the hunter-killer team. Full operational authority, choose your people, whatever you need. Thank you, sir. Don't thank me yet, muttered. You have 72 hours. He left her with the folder. The medallion sat on the table, the fox's eyes catching the light, almost mocking. Morgan pocketed it and tried to return to her maps, but her concentration fractured. Something about the craftsmanship tugged at her memory, pulling her backward. That night the dreams came. She was 13 again, hiding beneath the floorboards of her father's study in Beirut. The house above shook with crashes, boots slamming across wood. Her father stood tall, rifle in hand, facing the door. His voice calm, steady. Then the door burst inward. Men in combat boots flooded the room. Hello, Michael, a voice said, American accent. Her father's voice, you're making a mistake. The reply was cold. The only mistake was trusting you with Blackbird. Where are the files? I don't know what you're talking about. A bitter laugh, then a gunshot. She saw it through the cracks. Her father fell. Blood seeped across the floorboards, dripping onto her cheek. The man knelt, younger then but unmistakable. Check the rest of the house, he ordered. Find the daughter, no witnesses. She bit her hand to keep from screaming as boots pounded above her. They never found her. Hours later, another man came, James Waters, her father's friend. He pulled her from the hiding place, whispering, I'm going to get you out, but you must be silent, absolutely silent. That night she made a promise, to her father, to herself. I'll find who did this, I'll make it right. Morgan woke with a start, sheets damp, the phantom of blood still warm on her cheek. The digital clock glowed 3:17. Sleep was useless now. She sat at her desk, turning the medallion in her palm. Shadow Fox knew her call sign, left it carved in bronze. That wasn't random. She dressed quietly and slipped into the night. The base was still, security lights casting long shadows, perfect for a ghost who didn't want to be seen. In the secure intelligence center, she used her clearance to pull records. 4 hours later, when dawn painted the sky gold, she had the truth, and it changed everything. Operation Blackbird. Her father's work, the operation he'd been killed for. Shadow Fox's victims weren't random. They all tied back to it. A network of names, missions, cover-ups, and at the center of it, when she reported to his office that morning, was sharp, severe. Your team, he said. Harrison, Williams, Henderson. His brows lifted. Those men aren't special operations qualified. They've seen Shadow Fox's tactics. They know the terrain. I can mold them. Fresh eyes are harder to compromise than veterans already tangled in politics. His jaw clenched. You're suggesting there's a leak. I'm suggesting Shadow Fox has inside information, and I won't risk it. Long silence, then one sharp nod. Approved, but they're your responsibility. She inclined her head. Understood. Now your plan. She spread a map across his desk. Shadow Fox has the advantage in open forest. We change the ground, we draw him here. She tapped a spot. An abandoned munitions depot, long forgotten, surrounded by enclosed, limited long-range positions. It neutralizes his edge. And how do you plan to lure one of the deadliest snipers alive into a confined space? She met his eyes. We leak a convoy, something too tempting to ignore. His gaze hardened. You're proposing to use yourself as bait. Not exactly. The convoy will do the work. I'll just be waiting where he thinks he has the upper hand. Leaned back, calculating. For a moment, something like approval flickered in his eyes. Very well. 72 hours, eliminate him. Yes, sir. As she turned to leave, his voice stopped her. Morgan, if there's anything you know about Shadow Fox, anything at all, now's the time to share it. Her hand tightened on the doorknob. The image of Reed's face in the surveillance photo flashed in her mind. The man who had once been her partner. The man she suspected now wore the mask of Shadow Fox. But she didn't turn, didn't answer. Nothing relevant, sir, she said and walked out. Later that day, she stood in front of her chosen team in a small briefing room. Tank, Williams, Henderson, their faces a mixture of curiosity and unease. Her voice was sharp, commanding now, stripped of the softness she'd once used. You've been selected for a classified hunter-killer mission. Objective, eliminate Shadow Fox. This does not leave this room. Tank's jaw worked. Why us, Sergeant? There are Spec Ops teams better trained. Because you've seen him operate. And because I need men who will follow orders, even when those orders don't make sense. Williams frowned. No offense, but we don't exactly have experience hunting elite snipers. Which is why, starting today, you'll receive the most intensive training of your careers. By the time we deploy, you'll be ready. She activated the projector. A blurred photo of Shadow Fox filled the wall. He's patient. He's methodical. He knows our protocols. He has inside information. That makes him more dangerous than any of you realize. Raised a hand. You think there's a mole. I know there is. That's why we operate compartmentalized. Each of you will know only what you need for your task. No exceptions. Uneasy glances traded between them, but no one challenged her. As the others filed out, Tank lingered. His eyes pinned her with quiet intensity. That day in the woods, he said, you called Shadow Fox's movements like you hunted him before, have you? Her silence was answer enough. He nodded slowly. If you're keeping something from us, Sergeant, I hope to God it doesn't get us killed. He left her with the empty room and the blurred photo glowing on the wall. She stared at it, heart steady but her mind churning. The mask blurred his features, but she didn't need the photo to recognize him. Reed. Her partner, her friend, her ghost. And now her enemy. Why did training feel more dangerous than combat? The yard behind the motor pool had been converted into a makeshift course overnight. Targets hung at irregular intervals. Obstacles blocked lines of sight. Morgan walked the ground at dawn, adjusting angles, calculating fields of fire, every detail tuned to replicate what they would face in the woods. By 600, her team assembled. Tank, Williams, Henderson, still limping from his wound but refusing to sit out. Sharp-eyed, restless, they looked at her differently now, not as the quiet clerk but as Ghost 7. Still, doubt lingered in their stares. Morgan's voice was sharp, clipped. From this point forward, you don't eat, you don't breathe, you don't even think without considering where the shot could come from. Shadow Fox won't give you second chances. She pointed to the range, positions. Tank moved first, setting his stance solid and wide. She shook her head. Too rigid, you're a billboard out there. He scowled. This stance has served me fine. Against rifles, not against him. She nudged his foot with her boot, adjusted his shoulders, forced his profile lower. Now you're a ghost. Learn the difference. Williams smirked at the sight of Tank being corrected. Guess the big man's not so invincible. Neither are you, her gaze snapped to him. You telegraph every movement, you want to stay alive. Break your habits or he'll break you. The smirk faltered. She moved through them like a surgeon, dismantling their flaws one by one. Henderson's limp meant he favored his left side. She forced him to compensate. Reflexes were too quick, too loud. She drilled him until patience settled in his bones. Hours bled together. Sweat soaked their uniforms. Tempers flared. More than once Williams muttered curses under his breath. But by sundown something had shifted, movements sharper, awareness keener. Morgan stood at the edge of the yard, arms crossed, watching them dismantle the course she'd built. Tank approached, jaw tight. You're pushing them too hard. Not hard enough, she said evenly. They're soldiers, not machines. She turned to him, her voice low, cutting. Shadow Fox doesn't care if they're soldiers. He'll treat them like targets, and unless they move like machines, they won't survive. For a long moment they locked eyes. Then Tank gave a slow nod, not agreement, but understanding. That night she sat alone in the barracks, cleaning her rifle under the low hum of fluorescent lights. The medallion lay on the desk, catching faint glimmers. She traced the carved letters, her father's face flashing in her mind. The radio hissed suddenly, static, then a voice, low, distorted, familiar. Alexis. Her breath caught. You've changed. Her fingers tightened on the radio. She knew the voice even beneath the distortion. Read, Shadow Fox. You left me, he said softly. That day in Mosul, pinned down, outnumbered, you ran, you let me die. Her pulse hammered. You're alive. Not the man you knew. They left me in the dirt, Alexis. Enemy hands, months in cages. When I got out, I saw the truth. The system we bled for doesn't protect people like us. It buries us. So I became the storm they feared. Her chest ached. The man who'd once been her brother in arms, her partner, the one who taught her how to control breath, how to read wind like scripture. You don't have to do this, she whispered. His laugh was soft, bitter. I already have, and soon everyone who betrayed us will fall, including you can walk away now, Alexis, or you can die with him. The line went dead. She sat frozen, the silence pressing heavy. Tank's voice broke it. Who was that? He stood in the doorway, arms crossed, having heard enough. An old ghost, she said quietly. His eyes narrowed. Shadow Fox. She nodded once. You know him. A pause, her throat felt tight. I knew him once. Tank stepped inside, his bulk filling the room. His voice was low, steady. That's why you volunteered. This isn't just about the mission, it's personal. Her silence answered for her. Tank leaned on the desk, close enough for his shadow to fall over the medallion. If this is personal, you're a liability. Her eyes lifted, sharp. If this is personal, it's the only reason I'll finish it. The air between them tightened. Neither blinked, neither yielded. Finally, Tank straightened. Then you'd better tell the others the truth before it gets us all killed. She shook her head. Not yet, not until they're ready. Right now, all they need to know is he's dangerous. That's enough. Tank didn't like it, but he didn't argue. 3 days of brutal drills followed. Each night, Morgan collapsed into her bunk, body aching, dreams fractured. Each morning she rose before dawn, her will the only thing dragging her upright. The men began to move differently. Quieter, sharper, like shadows instead of soldiers. Still, the doubts lingered. On the final day of training, she led them into the woods for a live exercise. 4 kilometers in, Williams muttered, "This is pointless. We're chasing a ghost we can't even see." Exactly, Morgan said. That's the point. You'll never see him until it's too late, unless you learn to feel him. Feel him, Williams scoffed. What the hell does that mean? Listen, she stopped. The forest pressed around them, dense and alive. Tell me what you hear. Tank closed his eyes. Wind through the pines, small stream about 50 meters out. Henderson added, "Birds, South Ridge." Frowned, "But not on the north. It's too quiet up there." Morgan nodded. "Good. Quiet where it shouldn't be means something is there. That's how you feel him. Shadow Fox kills silence first." The lesson stuck. She saw it in their eyes. When they returned to base, was waiting. Arms folded, expression unreadable. "Your team ready?" he asked. "They will be," she said. "Because they'll need to be." He handed her a sealed folder. "Intercepted communication. Shadow Fox is planning something bigger than a single assassination. An entire convoy, officers, diplomats, high profile. If he succeeds, it will cripple our operations here." Morgan opened the folder. Maps, routes, Shadow Fox's handwriting scrawled across the margins, and at the bottom a single line in black ink. "Ghost 7 will bleed." Her stomach tightened. This wasn't just war anymore. It was personal, and he wanted her to know it. That night, alone again, she whispered into the silence as though he could hear her. "You're right. I did leave you, and I'll carry that forever, but I won't let you burn the world for it." Her reflection in the window stared back. Tomorrow, the hunt would begin for real. And this time, only one ghost would walk away. Why did the forest feel like it was watching them? The convoy moved slowly along the dirt road, engines grumbling in the pre-dawn stillness. Dust trailed behind the armored vehicles, hanging in the cold air. Headlights cut narrow beams through the trees, where shadows seemed to shift of their own accord. Morgan crouched on the ridge above, rifle steady, eye to the scope. Every sense sharpened, every detail catalogued. Her team spread across the high ground, Tank, Henderson, Williams, each positioned to cover an approach. The bait was rolling just as planned. Her earpiece crackled. "Convoy Alpha to Ghost 7 on schedule, no contact." "Copy," she whispered. It should have felt routine, a trap disguised as routine, but her chest was tight, something in the stillness pressed on her ribs. The forest had gone too quiet, no wind, no birdsong, no movement at all. His voice cut in, "Feels wrong." "Trust your instincts," she said. Her finger rested near the trigger, every muscle coiled, waiting. Then movement. A flicker of shadow on the far ridge. She dialed the scope, a glint. The angle was perfect, too perfect. "Contact North Ridge," she barked. But before the words even finished, the world exploded. The lead vehicle burst into flame, a rocket slamming through its engine block. Heat rolled across the ridge, dust and fire blooming upward. Shouts on the radio dissolved into static and screams. "Ambush," Tank roared, opening fire. Rounds cracked from every direction. The convoy was pinned in a kill zone. Figures darted through the tree line, muzzle flashes stuttering in the dark, but Morgan wasn't looking at them. Her scope found him. Shadow Fox, Reed, masked, rifle braced on the ridge, his movements precise, calm, even as chaos unfolded around him. Their eyes met through glass, predator and predator. He fired. She shifted half a breath, and the round slammed into the dirt where her head had been. Her reply was instant, 2 rounds, tight, aimed for his chest. But he moved with fluid grace, rolling out of sight. "Morgan," Henderson's voice screamed in her ear, "we're cut off." "Hold position," she snapped. Her scope swept the battlefield. She picked off a gunman near the convoy, another in the trees, but for every one she dropped, 2 more appeared. This wasn't just an ambush. It was a message. Reed was showing her he could still control the game. A sharp crack, Henderson cried out. She swung her scope, heart pounding. Henderson was down, clutching his side. Blood darkened his uniform. Williams dragged him back into cover, panic written across his face. "I've got him," Williams shouted. "Cover," she ordered, but was silent, too silent. Her gut sank. She scanned right, sprawled on the ridge, motionless, a clean hole through his helmet. Her breath hitched. 1 shot, 1 kill, Reed's signature. "No," she whispered. Tank's voice thundered over the comms. We're being slaughtered. Stay in cover, she barked, forcing steel back into her voice. They want you to break formation. But her chest burned, was gone, Henderson bleeding out. The trap had become theirs. Through the smoke and chaos, a figure emerged, broad shoulders, calm stride. Reed. No mask now. His face lit by the burning convoy, sharp features hardened by scars. He wanted her to see him. He raised his rifle, but not at her, at Henderson. No, she screamed, firing. Her round clipped his shoulder, spinning him sideways. He staggered, then vanished back into the tree line. The forest swallowed him whole. Silence fell as quickly as it had erupted. The convoy was in ruins, 3 vehicles burning, 2 still smoking, survivors scrambling for order. On the ridge, Morgan's team was shattered, dead. Henderson barely conscious, blood pooling. Tank kneeling beside him, fury burning in his eyes. Williams pale, shaking, his hands slick with Henderson's blood. She lowered her rifle slowly. Her heart thudded in her throat. She had been outplayed. Reed had been 3 steps ahead from the start. The medevac arrived 20 minutes later. Henderson was lifted out, his face white as paper. His body was zipped into a bag, loaded into silence. Morgan stood apart, rifle slung, dust and ash smeared across her face. The men looked at her differently now, not with doubt, not even with awe, but with something harder. Expectation. Responsibility. Tank stepped close, towering over her. His voice was low, steady, dangerous. One of ours is gone. Another might not make it. This was your plan. Her jaw tightened. I know. You said you could outthink him. Her voice broke just barely. I thought I could. He stared long enough to see the crack in her armor, but instead of anger, something else flickered in his eyes. Then fix it, because if you can't, I will. She met his gaze. For once, she didn't mask the weight in her eyes. You can't beat him, Tank. He knows me. He knows every move I've ever made. And I. She stopped. You what? Tank pressed. Her throat tightened. I trained him. The words hung between them, heavier than any explosion. You what? Her chest rose and fell, the admission burning. Reed was my partner years ago. We trained together. We learned each other's rhythms. Every shot I've taken, he studied it. Every tactic I've used, he knows it. If I predict him, it's because he taught me. If he predicts me. Tank's fists clenched. So this was never just a mission. This was personal from the start. Yes. And you didn't tell us. Her silence was answer enough. Tank shook his head, fury and disbelief mixing in his eyes. Then his blood and are on your hands. The words cut deeper than any bullet. He walked away, leaving her in the smoke, her chest hollow. Hours later, alone in her quarters, Morgan sat with her rifle across her knees. The medallion lay beside it, Reed's mocking gift. She stared at it until the lines blurred. Her reflection in the scope stared back at her. You wanted me to bleed, she whispered into the empty room. Well, you did it. But beneath the grief, beneath the guilt, something colder began to grow. Resolve. Reed had taken. He had nearly taken Henderson, and he would keep taking until she stopped him. Not for the army. For them, for her team. For herself. The hunt wasn't over. It had only just begun. And this time, she swore, one ghost wouldn't walk away. Why did the forest feel like it was holding its breath? Dawn crept over the pale light filtering through the mist. The air was damp, thick with the scent of pine and smoke from the burned-out convoy below. Every twig snap echoed. Every breath felt loud. Morgan moved ahead of the others, boots silent against the damp ground. Tank followed a dozen meters back, heavy frame surprisingly quiet now. His eyes stayed locked on her, still simmering with anger, but he hadn't walked away. That mattered more than she let herself admit. Behind them, Williams trudged, shaken, carrying more weight than his frame could handle, fear, doubt, guilt. Henderson was gone to the hospital, was in the ground. The team wasn't a team anymore. They were fractured pieces held together by the thinnest thread, Morgan's will. And even that thread felt ready to snap. She knelt at a clearing, fingertips brushing the soil, tracks fresh, boots light, deliberate. Reed. "He's here," she whispered. Tank scanned the tree line, jaw clenched. "Then let's end it." Her chest tightened. End it, as if it were that simple. Every step through the forest was a memory. Reed at her side years ago, correcting her grip, laughing when her shot went wide. His voice calm, patient. "You're thinking too much, Lex. Breathe. Let the world slow down. The target will reveal itself." Now his lessons hunted her. They moved deeper. The silence thickened. Even the wind seemed afraid to move. Then her earpiece hissed. "Alexis." The voice froze her blood. "Reed." Tank looked at her sharply. She raised a hand for silence. "You're close," Reed said. His voice was soft, almost gentle. "Closer than anyone else has ever gotten. I knew you would be." She swallowed hard. "Why are you doing this?" "You know why." "No," she said louder. "I know what they did to you, what they did to us. But this killing our own, that's not justice, that's revenge." "Justice?" His laugh was low, bitter. "Tell me, Alexis, where was justice when they left me in that cell? Where was justice when signed the order that abandoned us? You made peace with them. I didn't. And now they'll learn what it means to bleed." Her chest burned. "You think this makes you free? You're chained to it, every kill, every ghost. It doesn't fix what they took from you. It just makes you like them." Silence stretched, thick and heavy. Then his voice again, closer now. "You left me that day in Mosul. You had a choice, Alexis, and you chose yourself." Her breath faltered. Tank's eyes narrowed. He heard it all. Her voice cracked despite her control. "I thought you were dead. They pulled me out. I begged them to go back for you. They wouldn't. I couldn't stop them." "You didn't try hard enough." The forest answered with a gunshot. The round slammed into the tree trunk inches from her head, bark spraying. "Contact!" Tank roared, diving for cover. Morgan dropped prone, rifle sweeping the ridge. Her eyes found him, Reed half hidden, rifle braced, mask back in place. Predator in his element. "North Ridge, 200 meters, she barked. Tank opened up with his M240, tearing the trees apart. Reed vanished between the blasts, slipping like smoke. Morgan tracked him, waiting for the breath, the pause. There, a flicker of movement. She fired. Bark exploded, but Reed wasn't there anymore. Another shot cracked. Williams screamed. "Hit!" He dropped, clutching his arm, blood soaking his sleeve. Tank cursed, dragging him into cover. "We're pinned." Morgan's heart pounded, but her voice stayed calm. "He's circling us, trying to break formation. Don't chase." She shifted, scanning. Every angle, every shadow. She could feel him watching, could almost feel his breath on her neck. Then his voice again, closer, almost a whisper in her ear. "You can't protect them, Alexis. You never could." Her stomach twisted. She turned, scope sweeping, and froze. Reed stood 20 meters away, rifle lowered. Mask gone. His face was, eyes burning with something between fury and sorrow. He'd stepped into the open. Tank raised his weapon instantly. "I've got him." "Don't," Morgan snapped. Tank's eyes flared. "He's right there." "Don't," her voice was steel. Reed looked at her, not Tank. "You understand, don't you? We train to see the truth, to cut through the lies. You know's hands are dirty. You know they'll use you until you're broken, then throw you away, just like they did me. Join me, Alexis. Walk away from them. Stand with me." Her throat tightened. For a moment, just a moment, she saw the man he used to be, the friend, the brother, the only one who had ever understood her silence. Tank's voice was a growl. "He's playing you. End this." Reed's eyes searched hers. "You don't owe them anything. You don't owe him anything, but you owe me. Don't make me put you in the ground." Her finger brushed the trigger. Her breath slowed. Tank's weapon stayed trained, his voice taut. "Make the call, Sergeant, now." She met Reed's gaze. The forest faded, the noise, the war, everything. Just the two of them, caught between what was and what could never be again. Her voice was quiet, steady. "You're right, I do owe you." His eyes softened, just for an instant. And she fired. The round tore through his shoulder, spinning him backward. He crashed into the undergrowth, rifle clattering away. Tank surged forward. "Move." They pushed through the trees, weapons raised. But the forest was already swallowing him. Blood trail on the leaves, vanishing into mist. William staggered behind them, pale, clutching his arm. You had him." Her chest heaved. Her hands shook just enough for her to notice. Tank grabbed her shoulder, turning her hard. "You hesitated." Her voice cracked. "He was my partner." "Not anymore," Tank said coldly. "He's the enemy, and if you don't treat him like one, more of us are going to die." She stared at the blood trail fatting into the forest. Her heart twisted, torn between duty and the ghost of what once was. For the first time in years, doubt carved deep into her. And doubt, she knew, could kill faster than any bullet. Why did the world feel so quiet before endings? The forest stretched wide under a bruised sky, shadows pooling in the ravines. The air was damp, heavy, waiting. Morgan crouched at the edge of her rifle steady, eyes scanning the valley below. Every nerve was awake, humming. Reed was out there. She could feel him. Behind her, Tank and Williams moved carefully, bruised but alive. Henderson was still in the hospital, was in the ground. Their team had been cut in half, broken by Reed's shadow, and still they followed her here. Tank's voice rumbled low. "We can still pull back, regroup, bring in air support." "No," Morgan said softly. "He won't show himself for anyone else. He'll only come for me." Williams, pale, arm bandaged, swallowed hard. "Then maybe that's exactly what we shouldn't let happen." Morgan looked at him, really looked, the fear in his eyes, the weight of it. He wasn't wrong, but some things weren't about choice anymore. "This ends today," she said. Tank's jaw tightened. He didn't argue. They moved through the valley, the silence pressing heavy. Every rock, every tree felt like it could be a rifle. Every shadow felt like eyes. Half a kilometer in, the forest spoke. A single gunshot, a warning. Tank shoved Williams into cover. Morgan dropped, eyes sweeping, but she knew. Reed wasn't aiming for them, he was calling her. Her earpiece hissed, "Alexis." Her breath caught. "You hurt me," Reed's voice said, calm, almost intimate. "Not the bullet, the betrayal." She whispered back, "You betrayed yourself." "Maybe," he said, "but I've found clarity, and clarity is worth more than loyalty." Another shot cracked. A round punched the dirt a meter from Tank. A message, "Leave her or die." Tank's teeth ground. "He's pulling us apart." "Go," Morgan said quietly. "The hell I will. This is between him and me, always has been." Williams shook his head. "You'll die out there alone." She looked at him, her voice steady. "Then at least only one of us will." Tank's hand clamped on her arm. His eyes burned. "You walk into that forest, you'd better come back. Because if you don't, Reed doesn't get to live long enough to enjoy it. Understood?" She met his gaze. A rare softness flickered. She nodded once. Understood. And then she walked into the trees, alone. The silence grew heavier. Every step was deliberate, her rifle raised, scope sweeping. She followed the trail, small disturbances, bent grass, faint drops of blood. Reed was hurt, but not enough. 100 meters in, his voice drifted again. "Do you remember Kandahar, the ridge at dawn? We thought we were gods with rifles." Her throat tightened. "We were children with rifles." A soft laugh, closer now. "Maybe. But children see truth adults can't. You saw it too. The system isn't built for us, it's built on us." Her eyes swept the tree line. "Nothing, only shadows. So you burn it down with blood." "I rebuild it with fear. Fear lasts longer than loyalty. Fear dies with the man who spreads it." The crack of a twig, left flank. She pivoted, scope searching, and froze. Reed stood 30 meters away, rifle lowered, mask gone again. His face was pale, eyes burning with something that wasn't just rage. It was grief. "You should have been with me, Alexis," he said softly. "You were the only one who ever understood. We could have been unstoppable." Her chest ached. "We were unstoppable until you turned that strength on your own." His hands tightened on the rifle. "Because they deserve it. All of them. And if you can't see that, then you're standing on the wrong side of history." Her finger rested on the trigger. Her breath slowed. "I don't stand on sides," she said. "I stand where my ghosts tell me to." He raised his rifle. Time broke apart. Her scope framed his eye. His scope framed hers. Breath held, the space between heartbeats. One shot, that's all there would be. The forest exhaled. Two rifles thundered. The impact knocked her sideways, pain tearing through her shoulder. She hit the dirt, gasping, blood hot against her uniform. Through the haze she saw him stagger. His shot had grazed her. Hers had torn through his chest. He dropped to one knee, rifle slipping from his hands. His eyes found hers, wide, human again. She crawled closer, rifle dragging, breath ragged. He tried to raise his weapon, but his strength was gone. At last they were face to face. No scopes, no masks, just two soldiers who had once shared everything, now divided by everything. His lips moved. She leaned close. "You should have left me in that cell." Her eyes burned. "I did, and I'll regret it every day until I die." His breath rattled. His hand twitched, reaching, not for his rifle but for hers, for her. Then his chest stilled. His eyes emptied. The forest fell silent again. She sat there for a long time, blood seeping, chest tight, staring at the man who had once been her brother, her shadow. She wanted to scream. She wanted to cry. But only silence came. Tank's voice roared in the distance. "Morgan, Alexis." Boots thundered through the brush. Tank burst into the clearing, rifle raised, eyes locking on the body. "It's done," she whispered. He dropped beside her, checking her wound, rough but steady. "You're hit." "I'll live." His eyes flicked to Reed. His jaw tightened, but he didn't gloat, didn't say "I told you so." He just pulled her to her feet, slinging her arm over his shoulder. They walked out of the forest together, the shadows finally loosening their grip. Back at the base, the whispers returned. Ghost 7, Shadow Fox, the hunter and the hunted, but this time no one mocked, no one doubted, they only watched her in silence. That night, alone in her quarters, Morgan cleaned her rifle one last time. She placed the medallion on the desk, Reed's final ghost staring back at her. She whispered into the empty room, words meant for him, for herself, for the silence that had always defined her. Sometimes dignity doesn't speak, it simply acts. She closed the case. And for the first time in years, she allowed herself to breathe.